Ayan. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Pasensya na talaga sa kanina. I don't know what's happening dun pag iPad yata ang ginagamit. There's an mahina yung I don't know, yung audio or something. Pero ulitin lang natin dito on the laptop. Sana mas okay yung audio natin. Marami kasi nakikigamit dito sa internet dito sa bahay. Kaya pasensya na if it's not at its best. But anyways, guys, pag-usapan natin ito, balikan natin ito, pag-usapan natin yung ating minamahal na vice-presidente na sinabi niya apparently, obviously, in fairness to her, taken out of context naman. I mean, I know that as being a victim of DDS, twisting of my words. But, like, I'm not sure we have the most articulate, eloquent, like, pero yung, hindi siya pro any country was not the way to say it. But, pag-usapan natin yan because, obviously what Sara Duterte meant was that she's not pro any superpower, whether it's US or China. Pero medyo sabi natin sablay yung kanyang phrasing if not total messaging because I mean obviously what you should say is that I'm for the Philippines, Philippines first, medyo make Philippines great again, yung mga ganyan rather than saying ay hindi ako pro China or something like that. But anyway, what I found even more astounding in the case of Sara Duterte is yung kasi parang naging abogado to. I mean, it's not even abogado. Parang nag-graduate to. I mean, yung tinatanong niya yung interim release ng kanyang ama, si Tatay Digong, yung logic na parang just because there's an interim release provision, hindi po automatic dapat bibigay yan. May mga conditions, may mga requirements po tayo at pinag-usapan natin requirements na yan. So clearly, Sara Duterte is on the defensive right now and being on the defensive obviously is not something she's very good at. I think generally mga DDS sa pansin ko magaling sila when they're on the offensive. But once you call their bluff, once you push back and put them on their back foot or back heel or whatever, um, once they're on their back foot, they don't perform very well, right? Especially some of them, at least na walang masyadong message discipline. So balikan natin ito, yung ating minamahal na vice-presidente. Now, kanina dun sa isang episode natin that unfortunately we had to cut because of some technical issues, I was just talking about the fact that we live in a world na old assumption about politics are no longer I think should no longer be treated as basically sacrosanct or definitely not being treated as basically iron laws of politics, right? And as we predicted the other day, this is going to be a smooth sailing for Zohran Mamdani, who now is in a very good position to become the next mayor and the youngest ever mayor and Muslim background mayor, South Asian background mayor, Asian background mayor of New York, right? And importantly, first ever na socialist or progressive or democratic socialist background na mayor in the history of New York City, which is, last time I checked, still the heartland of global capitalism. Let me just reverse that because we were able to discuss a little bit. Balikan lang natin sandali lang itong issue ni Sara Duterte because para mainis lalo itong mga troll natin dito. Daming budget. Wait lang. Ano mga bus dito. So kanina lang guys, pinagpiesta ng pinagpiestahan ng lahat ng tao ito. Itong parang feeling ko minsan ko inaasar na lang talaga yung parang inaasar minsan hindi yung media, 'di ba? Yung sinabi ni Sara Duterte, I'm not pro any country at all. Talaga medyo sablay talaga, 'di ba? Yung now obviously again, to be fair, hindi tayo katulad ng kabila na tinitwist yung mga sinasabi natin sa Human Development Index and kung ano-ano. Ang konteksto kasi may back and forth sila ni Attorney Claire Castro and Attorney Claire Castro gets exactly what I've been saying, which is you have to be on the offensive and put them under back fit. So basically ang position ng attack position ng Malacanang ngayon is pro China ang mga Duterte. Or yun yung description nila because let's be honest, ilang taon na wala pang statement si Sara Duterte sa West Philippine Sea. Tapos kung may statement pa, medyo sablay pa, medyo papiaw, medyo pa-neutral effect, which doesn't really make sense. The situation in the Middle East is completely different from the situation in the West Philippine Sea. And we cannot be in the middle of US and China when in fact hindi naman US yung hindi naman US yung nagka-colonize ng ating mga karagatan or nagbubuli ng ating fishermen. And yung mga palusot ng mga Dutertes, they want to talk about horrible things China or as our US did in the past. Well, we can talk about also the horrible things na, I don't know, ginawa ng mga pirata dati nung panahon ng Espanyol sa atin or before. Like, you know, I'm all for remembering history, but what I don't like is that when you selectively use history to push for a certain political agenda or apologize for lack of patriotism or lack of backbone on important issue that is staring us in the face right now, which is yung bullying sa West Philippine Sea. We have to be absolutely clear about that. I am all with Sara Duterte about, yes, let's have diplomacy, let's avoid conflict, let's not, jump headlong into a kind of an escalatory dynamic. I'm all for that. 100% agree with that. I think we can all agree that we want an independent foreign policy, we don't want war, and we want good economic relationship. But ang point kasi dito guys is, right? Ang point kasi dito guys is tactics, right? Ang point kasi dito guys is drawing the line. And that's exactly where talagang kapos na kapos tayo kay Sara Duterte because she's yet to call out yung pangbubuli sa ating Coast Guard, pangbubuli sa ating mga isda, tsaka yung mga pangbubuli sa ating Philippine Navy na naputulan pa ng daliri yung isa sa ating mga patriots sa Sandatan Lakas ng Pilipinas sa Philippine Navy. I mean, where was she all this time, right? So parang style minsan ng mga DDS is every time there's war somewhere, whether it's Ukraine or Middle East, sabihin nila, oh, see, ayaw natin maging ganun. But hello, right? Like Vietnam has been standing up to China forever. The last time they had a major war was in 1979, and actually Vietnam arguably won that, right? And then there was a skirmish in 1988, so Johnson South Reef, but that was not a major war. And basically, since 1990s, there's no major war between Vietnam and China. Even if Vietnam stands up to China, even if Vietnam builds its capability, even illegally deploys its own military systems to semi-reclaim islands, but they're just responding to what China is doing at like next level in terms of fake island creation, militarization, deployment of massive militia. So miniature level ang ginagawa ng Vietnam compared to what China is doing. And last time I checked, wala tayong direct conflict with Vietnam in the West Philippine Sea. Unlike, yes, we had it back in the day. But we're talking about 2025, we're talking about 2010, 2015, 2020. Hindi natin problema ang Vietnam. Ang problema natin ngayon is basically yung pambubuli sa atin sa West Philippine Sea ng China, right? A country that Sara Duterte has not criticized at all last time I checked, or has not criticized sufficiently, right? So, this is the context in which si Sara sumagot at sabi niya, matagal na nilang narrative na pro-China ako. Sinasabi niya. So, narrative lang daw yon. Well, the problem with the narrative argument is that narrative means you selectively put some facts, half truths together to create a story line, a kind of a propaganda line, which distorts reality. But this is not a narrative. This is just a track record check. Please show me the last time that Sara Duterte openly called out yung pangbubuli sa ating Philippine Coast Guard, sa ating mga mangista, or if she ever did that, sorry, I haven't seen it. Is it sufficient? Is it forceful? Is it authentic? Is it proportionate? And is it consistent? Is it as frequent and regular as incidents in the West Philippine Sea? Because I'm losing count of how many times we had to file démarche and file diplomatic protests. I mean, like we're talking about hundreds and hundreds of cases throughout the years. How many times did she come out? So first of all, you cannot say that's just a narrative. This is just a track record check, right? So you can easily make basically a table or kind of a graphics and all every time we have at least, I'll be even nice, major incidents of West Philippine Sea, and then what did Sara Duterte say on that? Right? Because last time I checked, Sara Duterte had a lot to say on the Gaza conflict, on Middle East conflict. I think maybe even Ukraine, on Afghan refugees passing through the Philippines, blah blah. Ang dami ng statements in foreign policy and national security issue, diba? So ang tanong ko is, what has she said on West Philippine Sea that is anywhere close to as frequent, consistent, and commensurate base dun sa gravity ng situation we're facing? So first of all, no, this is not a question of narrative. This is a question of track record. Ano po yung track record nila? If they have a track record to show that she strongly stood up to China, as much as her father loves to criticize the West, 100%, then agree ako. Because, you have to be consistent. You have to criticize the excesses of the West when they violate international law, or you think when they violate international law. And at the same time, you also have to call out the excesses of the non-Western powers, especially when they're bullying us and our people, right? But here, this is where you see na talagang Sara is nowhere close to her father in terms of spontaneity, but also in terms of yung ability niya to effectively communicate an important issue. Sabi niya, I'm not pro any country at all. Sobrang sablay yun. You can never say. Of course, if you're the vice president of a certain country X, you are automatically supposed to be pro that country. And by virtue of that, you're supposed to call out kung may ibang bansa nang bubuli sa'yo, or pinapabayaan ka, or tinitaken for granted ka, uh, or in some cases, na backstop ka pa, di ba? Or tinaraydor ka pa. So, ang daming mali. So, obviously, I think she meant na I'm not pro any of these superpowers. She was referring to US and China. So, obviously, that's very poor communication skills. But where it's really problematic is itong claim na narrative lang to. No, this is basically just track record. Now, nevertheless, may isa pang interpretation. Actually, dalawa pang interpretation dito. And the other interpretation is that um, baka naman talagang ano siya, globalist or internationalist or New Yorker, parang cosmopolitan, 'di ba? Na kung talagang ano, 'di ba, the idea of being a cosmopolitan is that you're a citizen of the world, meaning you're not necessarily tethered to the interest or and particularities of a specific country. Well, but I'm not sure that's what she meant. I don't think she was trying to be a globalist or etc. The other interpretation is baka naman she's just being honest because para sa mga iba, lalong-lalo na yung mga galing sa mga Trapo dynasty families, baka talaga mas interest nilang Trapo family interest rather than national interest. That could be another interpretation, right? But nevertheless, ang point ko dito is even the most, I would say, fair and understanding interpretation of this very poor messaging, to put it mildly, is that she really doesn't have it. She doesn't even have what her father has when it comes to the ability to, well, not maybe not now, but he used to have, when he was in national politics, which is, to communicate even very controversial and divisive ideas, or communicate ideas on very controversial issues in a way that still gives him an off ramp or ability to make a joke around it, or an ability to kind of find a palusot or something, all sorts of sophistry. Alam natin, kayang-kaya niya. Yung mga katulad ng ginagawa nila Cheese Escudero, ng mga paikot-ikot na mga pusit games. So, just when we thought that was like interesting enough, we also see this kind of what I would find really weird argument, which makes you think, paano naging abogado tong taong to, or paano nakaano to. Bakit ka ba naglalagay ng provision of interim release sa inyong batas kung hindi mo rin naman pala yan ibibigay sa mga akusado? So basically, biglang kasalanan pa ngayon ng ICC na meron silang kondisyones bago nila bigyan ng basically piyansa, di ba? To make it more relatable. Ang isang tao is accused of mass atrocities, and isang tao na not long ago, yabang-yabang, sabi niya, upakan niya yung ICC, at isang tao na was absolutely unwilling to cooperate with the ICC. In fact, took the Philippines out of the ICC unilaterally in defiance of the Constitution. I mean, the Senate should have had a say on that. But remember, ngayon, medyo impressed kay Coco Pimentel. But Coco Pimentel was close to a useless Senate president, no offense to him, when Digong was in power. I mean, he really didn't stand up to Duterte, right? He was very weak. He was a horribly weak Senate president. I'm sorry. So, medyo napapaisip ako dun sa mga ibang kaibigan natin na impress sa kanya nowadays just because yung huling El Bimbo niya medyo hindi ganun kasablay. But I don't forget history. Like we shouldn't have such a short-term memory. We should, when you assess a person, I'm all for redemption and all, pero kung nakachamba lang siya yung last minute pero purong sablay yung the rest, like if you're a coach, for instance, are you gonna like pay millions of dollars again, and hire a player again for another season kung the whole season palpak and then yung last day lang ng season naka 2 or 3 goals? It doesn't work that way. You look at the track record again. Diba? Track record. Long-term trajectory and patterns and all of that. But anyways, going back to this. The context kasi dito is, honestly, dito napapaisip ako Parang, kasama ba sa recruitment strategy ng mga ka-DDS natin na medyo, you know what I'm gonna say, right? Ito kasi ang problema, pinapalabas nila, yung mga DDS, pinapalabas nila, na itong interim release na ay done and dusted na. Now, as I said, from my own sources, nagagets ko na may isang bansa, could be Portugal, could be maybe Spain, whatever, na in theory pumayag na to host Digong in under the condition that obviously papayag ang ICC, right? For him to have an interim release there. But that was not done and dusted, right? But ang problema is pinapalabas ng DDSI is tapos na yan, okay na yan, at ito pa, parang pinapalabas pa na nila na wala naman jurisdiction ng ICC at ang ICC naman ay wala naman, hindi naman guilty si Digong. So, medyo nag-advance mag-isip ang mga kaibigan natin. So, the prosecution has confirmed its non-opposition to, and ito yung claim nila. Kaya minsan ngayon napapaisip ako siguro kaya nga ni-recruit yung iba dyan dahil ito ang claim ng abogado nila is the prosecution has confirmed its non-opposition to interim release to ito redacted, so I'm thinking Portugal, Spain, state party on the understanding that the terms and conditions set out to this filing would be met. Non-opposition. Ibig sabihin, okay na yung ICC. Basically, it's just, ticking some boxes and we're there. No. And siguro maganda rin na nag-ingay-ingay yung mga tao dahil napapaisip, wait lang. Diba? I think Attorney Conti the other day was also talking about this na medyo astounding if not revolting itong possibility na just like that biglang may interim release na, although she raised also the possibility na baka we're talking about quite an extraordinary situation, again redacted yan, but based on the some of the understanding or information or speculation or educated speculation we may have, baka naman medyo malala yung sitwasyon ni Tatay Digong, so baka pagbigyan siya, kaya nagkaroon ng isang bansa at least na pumayag na malapit sa Hague. Kaya nga I doubt na this is outside Europe because it would be too, imagine if it's in, I don't know, Australia or Argentina or whatever, ang layo naman masyado sa Hague. Yeah, he has to fly in 12, 14, 16 or 2 days in and out. That doesn't work, right? So it looks like, right, that indeed tama yung information na kuha natin that there is a European country that may have agreed to hosting for an interim release, but that was not final. That was not final. Kaya yung ICC prosecution team made it absolutely clear na hindi po yan final, hindi yan done and dusted. All right? No agreement whatsoever was reached with the defense team of Rodrigo Duterte on conditions of interim release to any country other than, di ba? So, well, this looks like other than Netherlands or something. Anyway, because Justice Carpio's hunch is baka Netherlands pa rin siya, he'll just be taken out of that detention center na nag-live tayo from, yung nag-live tayo na area last time, na outside Hague lang. Baka he'll be taken to a house or some more comfortable place, parang house arrest style or whatever. Basta my point is, very clearly, may pushback yung prosecution team. And this is where I don't understand what Sara is talking about because she should know. You don't even have to be a lawyer. In fact, you don't even have to be like whatever. May condiciones. Interim release is not a kind of a, inalienable right. Especially when we're talking about mass atrocities. And where hindi nagkaroon ng voluntary collaboration and as the victim's family would put it, or alleged victim's family would put it, there is an active threat potentially to them kung nakalabas itong tao na to. And especially if the conditions are too lax, baka next thing you know, pwede pa niya i-direct yung continuation of the crimes. Diba sabi ng defense team, he will not continue crime, but what is your guarantee, right? And not to mention the logistical nightmares that could come to any place that is willing to host him for kind of basically a house arrest situation. And if it's loose or relaxed or there's no protocols or precautionary security measures, then good luck na lang kung ano mangyayari, di ba? Baka hindi lang cardboard and museum or whatever statue, baka kung ano nang mangyayari diyan, di ba? Magkakagulo-gulo na. So this is where like I honestly like I don't know if Sara really yan ang level ng understanding niya or she's just saying that for her own audience. But all I can say, guys, here, and this is where really we go back to where we started. We can complain always about bakit ganito tayo? Yung presidente natin ganito, yung vice-presidente natin ganito, and then okay, sinong less evil, sinong mas garapalan, sinong mas direct threat sa constitutional democracy. Hindi ba parang nakaka-depress na ito lang mga choices natin or ito yung range ng options natin? Di ba? Hindi ba nakaka-depress na parang It's just about ano bang purgatory, ano yung seventh circle of hell. When we absolutely can do way better than that. We can absolutely do better than that. I mean, all democracies, in fact, all political systems experience what, Samuel Huntington would call political decay. In fact, it goes back all the way to Plato, right? The concept of political decay. Political decay means that even the most vibrant societies na maayos ang lahat, maayos yung accountability, maayos yung city planning, over time, there could be more and more corrupt people coming in, or there could have been a war or a major natural disaster which undermined institutions. Like, for instance, coming from Baguio, like there was Baguio before earthquake, there was Baguio after earthquake. So many things went wrong in Baguio during the reconstruction period. And dyan, biglang nagkaroon ng mga trapo politics. Thankfully, we're back to much more normal Baguio politics, which is no dynastic politics. But there was a time na medyo may mga trapo politics. And a lot of that happened during the reconstruction period where a lot of things went wrong. So a lot of things that you see na medyo sabla in terms of city planning, urban planning, things that are not really what we used to see back in the pre-earthquake period, those happened during the post-earthquake, literally post-shock period. So that's a form of political decay. That's a form of institutional decay. That happens everywhere. We can talk about the horrible infrastructure in New York. We can talk about the decay of basic infrastructure in some of the major even European cities, even Paris, for instance, definitely Roma. Diba? We can talk about how Argentina went from the fifth richest country in the world to now one of the most unstable, hyperinflation infested country. Although Milei is taking things in the other extreme direction, and now poverty is shooting up like crazy. So political decay can happen in any country, any corner of the world. I can go from ancient history of Greek city states. We can even go to the Sumerian period. No problem with that. So political decay is almost inevitable, right? But what is not inevitable is that it will be a downward, um, straight downward deterioration. There could always be some sort of an arc of redemption or recovery. So going back to this, we have had ups and downs, but we also can learn from our mistakes. I mean, thanks to Robin Hood Padilla, thanks to Batorni, thanks to all of this kind of, let's be honest, clown show we're seeing in Senate, nagising yung mga ibang voters. Hindi lahat. But unfortunately, hindi lahat. But marami sa ating mga kabayan nagising sila at sabi na, how many more of these types of people do we want in Senate? Right? Do we want more buduts there? Do we want more magpapakman tayo dyan? Diba? No offense. Diba? What I'm saying here is that we're we're moving towards a world whereby at least the younger voters are saying either enough is enough or tingnan natin. Maybe there are other alternatives. And kaya nga sabi ko, we cannot operate based on old assumptions. What worked in 2016 elections, what worked in 2022 elections, or almost worked in 2020 elections, or seem to have worked in 2022 elections, might not work anymore in 2028 elections. You need to constantly update. You need to be constantly more dynamic. But you won't know what works unless you bet on it, unless you invest in it, unless you push it, right? And kaya nga naiinis ako when I hear these people saying, itong kandidato walang pag-asa to, right? Like, yeah, sure, there are certain people who clearly have presidential aspirations or other kinds of aspirations, and you think medyo malabo. Um, and then there's some sort of like, who know? You never know, right? So like, half jokingly, I threw the name of PNP chief, Torre there, or at least for vice presidential. Um, but then again, I mean, I really don't get some people are saying na ito ay dapat ultimately is gonna be Sara and Lenny again or something like that, like round two between Duterte and Pinks or whatever. Like, how can you say that? What is your basis for that, right? How sure are you na you things that work but actually didn't work that much in the past? 2016 was a very close call. 2022 was quite a landslide in the wrong direction, of course. How can you say that what's going to work in 2028? Or forget it. I mean, it's not, the reason why we mentioned Riza Ontiveros is because Riza Ontiveros is supposed to be the de facto leader of the opposition. I say supposed to be because the baton was passed to her, but next thing you know is parang not really, right? Or bakit parang iba yung sinasabi ng iba? Or bakit yung iba umaasa na ibang tumakbo? Wala naman akong problema dyan. Kaya nga sabi ko, in theory, sana we have something like primaries, like what they had. Like, let's see who's the best. Is it Como? Is it Mamdani? Let's go, right? But if you don't have primaries, And ang basehan lang dito is, ang opinion ng mga ilan dyan na either laos na mag-isip or medyo hindi nag-update or medyo self-serving or self-interested ng analysis or medyo sublime analytics or I don't know, Google Trends yung basehan nila or kung ano-anong kaikekan, forget about it. We'll never upgrade to the next level. We're never going to reverse this political decay we're seeing. I mean, look at our Senate goes from, Vito Salonga level to Batorni level, right? This is clear political decay, institutional decay. Look at Senate presidents like Nene Pimentel, who resigned in principle during the botched impeachment proceedings against Era Estrada, although eventually things turned out in the right direction, and then later on hindi naman. But anyway, mahabang story yan. But you go from principal Senate presidency and then you see Jesus Cordero level of basically nonsense, right? So this is political decay. This is institutional decay. But you're not gonna reverse that if you're gonna say, oh, kaya nga di ba sabi ni Einstein, right? You're not gonna solve problems with the same state of mind that gave birth to that very problem, right? So going back to the same kind of supine liberalism or inutil liberalism or to defeat demagoguery and all of this Batorni nonsense. I know some people, because they cannot accept the defeats in 2016, 2019, and even 2020, and then because they saw some hope in 2025, they're trying to bring us back again to 2015 and 16. When in fact, we have to move forward towards something else. I mean, in fairness, I may have some disagreements with Bam here and there. I may have some issues here and there, but I think Bam gets it very well, right? Now, you need to level up. You need to build uh, intersectional coalitions, right? You need to, up your communications game. You have to be a little bit more spontaneous. You have to be, di ba, naging buff Bam pa siya, di ba? Buff Aquino, di ba? You play around, you experiment, right? Si Kiko, bigla naging food vlogger, di ba? Pinagtawanan, but in the end, kind of worked. But then again, what worked in 2025 might not work in 2028 when it's a complete different race. Kasi hindi lang naman Senado ang pinag-usapan natin when you have 12 options and usually people vote between 6 to 8 candidates. If we're talking about presidency, we only have one option. So the factors that could have helped you in 2025 may not help you in 2020. But then again, we're not going to know what works unless we try alternative options. We try something different. And that's why, guys, you have to call it out. Whenever you hear someone with certainty saying, ay, walang chance yan, or matalo yan, ganun. Like, wait, by the way, ano ulit ang record mo ng prediction? Let's talk about that. Oh, I'm sorry. I can talk about all of the things I've written about, what could happen under Duterte and what could go wrong, and went exactly as I said. November, well, hindi pa nga November, but like October pa lang ng 2021, I already have articles from Nikkei Asia to publications in UK, whatever. Mananalo si BBM. Not because he's the best, but because nung nagsama na silang dalawa ni Sara and Sara dropped out from the presidential race, it was just a matter of basically arithmetic and coalition politics, right? While I gave credit also to how Pink Movement was able to make the most out of its underdog status, right? And we can go on and on. I predicted that Marcos is going to be much more mild, much more, I would say, pragmatic or at least reasonable on the West Philippine Sea, should not be so pro-China. That's exactly what happened. You can see at Marcos, June 2022 pa lang, I've been writing about this thing. So, yes, no one has 100% record, but, when other people say, oh, this is not gonna work, like, who you again? Like, did you even predict the rise of Duterte? Because I did in August 2015 pa lang kay Tito Boy Abun. I can check it. Not because I know everything. It's because, I was always open to possibilities and I was always looking at changing trends and ups and downs and secular trends and contingencies and all of those different factors, right? Multivariant analysis. So, yun yung nakaka-frustrate sa akin na we're allowing certain people to get away with conjecture and package conjecture as if it's prophecy. Kaya nga minsan, even si Sir Ronald, kinakall out ko yan eh. Kayo rin, huwag kayo makinig parati kay Ronald. Minsan, he's just saying things because he's saying things. He doesn't also know always what he's talking about. I mean, sobrang sablay yung sinabi na hindi uwi si Digong from Hong Kong. Hello. Uwi yan si Digong kasi mayabang siya, defiant siya, boom, next thing you know. So, don't just take things as received wisdom, right? We're talking about probabilistic analysis here. So, think for yourself. But more importantly, be open psychologically, temperamentally, to new ideas, new faces. I mean, for heaven's sake, puro mga Gen X above, yung boomer and Gen X yung options natin for 2028. Why are we not talking about more millennials? Aside from also Vico Soto. Vico Soto is not the only, young leader na rising out there. There's so many other people we have to pay attention to. Some of them are in politics, some of them are not in politics. Pero kung yung mindset natin, ito lang pwede, ito hindi pwede, ganito, tapos based on conjectural, flimsy arguments, apples versus oranges kinds of comparison, good luck. Good luck sa atin. We'll never grow, we'll never mature, never go to the next level. Now, there are times whereby you have to play safe and strong, but there are also times whereby playing safe doesn't get you too far, right? Or playing safe may get you into office but on very weak position. Or it could actually limit your options. Or actually sometimes you can have Pyrrhic victory. Nanalo ka nga, nakapasok ka nga, tapos trapo ka rin pala or naging trapo ka, lalong-lalo na maging cynical ang mga voters. Tapos ay, binoto ka namin, akala namin maging progressive ka, you're gonna change things, blah, blah, yung pala, trapo ka rin pala, you cut deals pala during elections, blah, 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 kaya ngayon, ganyan, ka, pa-safe ka, pa-cute ka, whatever. It does even worse. When people voted for you, thinking you will be the transformative candidate, yung pala, nagsobrang pa-safe trapo ka during elections, next thing you know, purong ipit yung kamay mo, kaya sablay-sablay yung statement mo, or wala kang statement, or late yung statement, or whatever, or mga pakit-pakit pahapyaw na Jesus Cordero style, wala. Good luck. Right? Remember, there was once upon a time, Jesus Cordero was seen as kind of a, Spice Boys, fresh candidates, whatever, fresh face, whatever, and then next thing you know, right? And sabi ko, but tayo surprised. We knew always na itong tao na ito, ganun talaga siya, diba? Traditional politician talaga. So, you get what I'm saying? That's why I think it's very important in the next year or two. First of all, we push back against someone saying, dapat ito lang maging kandidato ng pink movement or that. No. Why not Risa? Why not Bam? Why not, yes, Lenny again? But why also not other people? I mean, we can talk about other people, right? Why are we limiting it to one or two person? And why are we not open to ideas of primaries, for instance? Or at least a way for us to know who's really better, right? Kasi kung talaga mag-consolidate naman yung base, ang usapan dito is hindi yung winning chance. Ang usapan dito is, are we really putting the best possible person under the current circumstances in Malacanang in 2028, right? I mean, again, that's it. I mean, so many things could happen in 2028. Bongo might run. Rafi Tulfo might not run, right? I don't know, someone from BBM cabinet might run, right? So much could happen. Yeah, exactly. Thank you for mentioning Heidi Mendoza. If only Heidi Mendoza was given more chance, more resources, kung sana mas kasama siya sa mga sorties nila Bam and Kiko, who knows? Checky Bam. Maybe if Chel, again, I'm happy that, he's representing a great party list and I'm great for performance of Akbayan, but, seeing how, Camille Villar, Marcoleta, but, like all of these people got in, like, then why not Heidi Mendoza? Why not Chel Jokno, right? But you won't know that if you don't invest in it. Don't give it a chance, right? It's in the same way that people are saying, walang pag-asa yung si Risa. Like, what is your basis for that? Etong taon nanalo 2016 and 2022, right? Now, if you don't like her, just admit it. But don't make this blah, 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 pseudo-analytics, blah, 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 to basically shut down the debate. Get out of here, right? Tsaka yung mga iba dyan na mga inilingay dyan, wala na kayo, just get out of the way, right? You're not serious people. You're not real thinkers. You're not serious people. Purong palpak na nga yung reading nyo in the past. Just allow other people to explore possibilities. It goes without saying, right? 2028 is about winning. Absolutely, because you don't want the horrible people to come back. It's not like things are great, but you don't want the worst types to come back. That's a given. But, ano pinagsasabi mo na it's not that simple. You think I think linear about this? All right, Alan, you're free to read a million articles na sinulat natin on different angles of this issue. All right, there's so many different elements to this. And believe me, whoever you have talked to, I've talked to 10 different more people than you who have been involved in campaigns and all of that. What I'm saying is that what kayo mag-feeling na you know it all. Alright? I know I've been always accused, Richard know it all. Yeah. But actually, if you look at it, I'm willing to reassess my assumptions and actually I'm open to new ideas and new analytics and new data, and we constantly upgrade and re-upgrade and all. Ang pinakayo ko is yung hindi nag-upgrade. Yung analysis ay sablay pa rin. 2015 pa rin analysis, hindi pa rin nag-upgrade. And then of course, there are also distinctions we have to make, no? In the same way that Hemingway said, there's an objective writing whereby you just describe how things happen, and then there's a subjective writing where you describe how things happen and how you feel about those things. Then you fuse that. It's the same thing also in political analysis. There's an analysis that is just a basic read of the situation. So, Based on that, yes, mahina pa rin ang opposition. Genuine opposition. And yes, if you were to bet, yes, Sara Duterte still has a chance to be the next president. Perhaps she's still the front runner. Yeah, that will be a purely realpolitik objective analysis. But you can also have normative analysis, whereby, okay, these are things as of today based on a snapshot, but things could change, and then you can do scenario building, and then you can notch things in a certain direction so that you can get a better outcome. That's called political strategy, right? So, yun ang sinasabi ko, all right? Please have some humility, right? And I'm telling that also to myself. Believe me, the reason why I keep on writing and writing is because I keep on calibrating and redefining and upgrading and improving the analysis and refining it, and then sometimes even revisiting what I said in the past, right? There are a couple of things I got wrong perhaps in the past. Balikan natin yan. So, this is it eh. This is it, guys. And you know, I'm so happy that Heidi ran, yes, Luke ran again, a couple of people, even though they didn't make it, at least they made people realize, wait, why are we just allowing the same people to keep on running and then hoping the least bad win? I mean, what the heck, right? We can do better than that. There are more than 100 million Filipinos. There are tens of millions of, you know, highly educated, intelligent, patriotic Filipinos. Why are we just stuck with few options? Bakit puro Gen X, boomers lang mga options natin, right? We can do better than that. That's my point. Anyway, on that note, thank you very much, guys. Maraming salamat. Thank you very much for paying attention to this matter. May bago naman tayo. Thank you very much for paying attention to this matter. Okay, whatever. Mamaya na tayo mag-argue, okay? Magbasa muna kayo ng mga sinusulat natin. Because, you know, I approach things differently when we are doing vlogs. It's very informal, it's very conversational, very Socratic. But if you want to see a much more Aristotelian or even Hegelian approach to my analysis, dialectical analysis, we have a ton of writings there. Speak of ton of writings, next week po lalabas yung latest journal article natin, God willing, with the Journal of Democracy. When I say journal article, I'm meaning academic journal article. This is with the Journal of Democracy, where I analyze what are the prospects for the Philippine opposition as a third force, and what are the implications of 2025 elections. Again, this is an academic publication, and unfortunately, you know, the final version is always half of what I've written. So the original draft is 9,000 words, but I think the final version is just around 4,000 words. So I'll try to post at least a link to it. I don't know about the copyright thing, but hopefully it will be libre over time. Again, it's a kind of a slice of my bigger analysis, and God willing, my hope is that put all of these journal articles and long essays together so that we can have a proper book down the road, and have a much more comprehensive analysis ng the ebbs and flows of Philippine politics and what is in store for us, the good, the bad, and ugly, and how we can avoid the ugly and reinforce the good. Yun pong ginagawa natin. On that note, thank you very much again for paying attention to this very important matter of national interest. All right? And maraming salamat. God bless. And talk to you soon. We hope tomorrow and Friday, catch up naman tayo with the Big Two or Big Three, with Justice Carpio, with Ronald Llamas in person, continue this kind of conversation, not to mention RMC with our friend Mark Gamboa, G. And then, of course, we're hoping also to have Professor Cleve Arguelles also back here. Pag-usapan naman natin again, Pink Movement, Ma'am Dani, Vico, Pita, Young Leaders. Ang dami natin pwedeng pag-usapan because we live in a world of horrible uncertainty, but also beautiful, big and beautiful possibilities. No, but honestly, we live in a moment of extreme contingency, and it could go in different directions. So we want to also look at the good side of this story. Okay? God bless, and talk to you soon.